Imagine opening a file in Chicago and seeing a record that shouldn't have been there. Meghan Markle is inextricably linked to a name, a date, and a little-known historical fact. In 1995, a teenager was connected to a child that neither the actress nor the Duchess was supposed to know about. For decades, her official story has been refined. Hollywood, school, graduating, taking a year off, and then royalty. But underneath that perfect series of circumstances lies a mystery. That is, beginning in the summer of 1994. And once you see how it starts, you'll understand why Chicago birth documents contain the most damaging truth Meghan Markle has ever tried to hide. The date is June 1994. Meghan Markle just received her diploma from Immaculate Heart High School. When Meghan's friends plan summer outings and college breaks, her life suddenly takes a turn for the worst. She doesn't want the lights or the glamour when she visits Las Vegas. She wants something entirely different. In a small, unassuming chapel off the Strip, Meghan and Joe Giuliano are standing next to one another. There were no photographs, no announcements in the local newspaper, no school friends, just Meghan, Joe, and two quiet family witnesses. It is a short, silent ritual that is practically intended to disappear as soon as it is over. But this is the point at which the plot changes. Within months, the marriage is not ended in the traditional way. The papers are sealed away, and it is old. That one decision raises the first red flag. Teenagers are prone to making mistakes. Young marriages don't work out. But when there is nothing to hide, why bury the record where no one can see it? Why hide behind a legal lock a story that was never meant to be known by the public? This sealed paper is the spark that ignites everything else. Not simply deleting the history, but concealing anything so idly creates a hole big enough to swallow the truth. After taking a year off after formally graduating in June 1994, Meghan enrolled at Northwestern University in the fall of 1995. On paper, it seems harmless. A year to discover herself, grow, and prepare for adulthood. However, upon closer examination, that gap year is forgotten. No exchange programs, no study abroad applications, no pictures from her overseas trips, and no official or academic records confirming her actions or locations. For a whole year, Meghan Markle's life is completely new. This lost year coincides with two life-changing events, the Vegas wedding and the alleged pregnancy. Even while the official narrative claims she was finding herself, what if she was really hiding? What if, instead of any self-discovery at all, the year she missed was really about concealing a chapter that was too explosive for her future self-image? The fact that the year was empty isn't the only oddity. This cover does a good job of hiding a mystery that begins with a chapel in Las Vegas and ends with tales of a child in Chicago. To understand what happened next, you had to understand Joe Giuliano and the family Meghan married into. The Giulianos were not Hollywood. They were not looking for cameras or headlines. They were a normal Italian-American family from Chicago. They kept their world to themselves and were a quiet, secretive, and protective family. Joe himself was seen as calm, loyal, and family-oriented. Someone who followed strict rules, the opposite of anarchy. Those values shaped everything. First marriage, followed by children reared in the household. Private resolution of concerns. When Meghan began talking about attending college, performing, and building a life in the limelight, these values stood in sharp contrast to her aspirations. The Giulianos did not want publicity. Meghan wanted to be on stage. It was more than the marriage of a young couple. Two worlds collided, one intended to draw notice and the other to remain silent. And that quiet conflict, that tug-of-war between ambition and privacy, informed the decision that would define the next 3 decades. The rumors had been verified by mid-1995. According to those close to the Giuliano family, Meghan discovers she is pregnant a few months after the wedding in Vegas. The crucial moment then occurs. A baby girl is allegedly born that summer. However, Meghan agrees to this rather than raising the child herself. The Giuliano family is going to adopt the baby. Nothing, such as official filings, announcements, or adoption paperwork, that would ever connect her name to Meghan Markle. This was not a mistake. It was deliberate. A choice meant to keep the baby out of Meghan's story and protect her reputation moving forward. The Giulianos accepted the child into their family in keeping with their traditional values. But Meghan slipped out of sight, retreating into the shadows. The child would be safe and secure at the Chicago home of the Giulianos. She didn't have a spotlight, cameras, or even her biological mother's identity. The childhood was lived in plain view, despite the fact that it was officially invisible. Just a few months after the baby is born, Meghan and Joe finish the annulment. But once again, this is not a common conclusion. The enrollment is promptly sealed without any explanation. What should have been a simple teenage mistake instead vanishes behind a closed file. For Meghan, this was her break. She never turned around, didn't call, and didn't visit. From then on, she removed the Giuliano chapter from her public image. But Joe did not disappear. By all accounts, he remained in contact, visited, and raised the child in the safe circle of his family. Meghan, however, boarded an entirely different train and prepared to begin her studies at Northwestern University that fall. It was a tidy transaction. Meghan got her education, her freedom, and a new beginning. The Giulianos were given the baby with one condition: they had to keep quiet. The telling of this story must never be revealed. After then, the story splits in two. In Chicago, the Giuliano family carries on with their peaceful existence. A child lives a life that cannot be connected to Meghan, is raised under a false name, and is shielded from inquisitive eyes. At gatherings, neighbors may see her, but nobody ever introduces or describes her. Meanwhile, Meghan transforms herself. She joins the drama department at Northwestern, makes new friends, and starts to take on the character that the world would soon recognize. The past is over. The Vegas chapel, the enrollment, and the child are all shown as if they never occurred. The Giulianos maintain their silence to protect their own. Meghan pushes ahead on hers, wanting to get into the worlds of nobility and renown, but the silence remains. It lasts for years, but silence is never perfect. It percolates. These little leakages eventually grow too big to ignore. In Chicago, the tale was never shouted. It was whispered in kitchens, sneered at, and whispered in the background of everyday life. At Giuliano family gatherings, neighbors said they saw a little girl. She went to birthday parties, cookouts, and holidays, but no one ever knew who she belonged to. The answers were unclear when queries were posed. It was family, a relative's child, and nothing else. She was not mentioned in school newsletters. Public records that would have linked her to Meghan Markle did not include her. On paper, she didn't exist. But in reality, she was there all the time. A tranquil childhood spent surrounded by family members. To keep any one piece of information from being revealed, every detail was carefully managed. That her mother was the young woman who had just departed to become a historical tale. Years pass. As she rises from student to actress to duchess, Meghan's reputation increases. Silence endures even if it never really goes away. The phrase Vegas situation involving Meghan, which was never defined, was recalled by a family friend. Another relative refers to the kid as Meghan's before she was ours in an unguarded moment of honesty. No rumor has the same potency as these 7 words. These weren't talks or rumors on the internet. Those who were close to the family made these private, low-pitched comments. No TikTok, no gossip websites, just memories. Furthermore, compared to sealed documents, memory is more difficult to erase. Now into the moment. There is a woman of perhaps 29 or 30 years old somewhere in Chicago who is probably living a dull existence. She departs for her job. She goes to see her family. She shops for groceries. She peruses her phone, just like everyone else. But if you look more carefully, the story is different. She has the same lineage, eyes, and bone structure. She has never openly supported Meghan Markle. The fact that she is her daughter has never been mentioned. However, she is associated with a decision taken decades ago in a little chapel in Las Vegas. This isn't a rumor propagated by unknown people. This missing family member was raised in public but was shielded from her true identity by layers of silence. She may not even realize how important her story is now. Right now, everything is in balance. For 30 years, the shield has been silent, set an enrollment record and prevented a gap year from occurring. A child raised under the name of a different family. Every object is designed to keep 2 worlds apart. But silence does not last forever. A single document, a single voice, or a single revelation might undermine the whole organization. Why seal the records if this was merely a teenage regret? If there was no kid, Why let the Giulianos raise someone who would never be heard of again? The truth is fragile, but that does not mean it is weak. It suggests that the slightest hint of strain might cause the silence to shatter. After then, everything is changed. Look, that daughter is stepping forward. Think about the headlines, the questions, and the aftermath. Rumors and speculation are unrelated to this. Behind decades of quiet, Hollywood famous, and royal titles, it is a mystery that has endured for far too long. And now, for the first time, that silence is starting to crack.